Hey everybody, Maddie here with Beyond Spooky. So I know it's been a while since I've done a video, done anything at all, and I want to apologize for that. I've been trying to get caught up on my main channel, the Backwoods Mindset, trying to get that stuff back rolling. After losing my job last year, it took the back burner and didn't get built up so much, which in return also made the other channels that I do, this one and Buck and Barb, haven't had a whole lot come out at all. Nothing that I wanted to do, nothing that I promised to do, and that is my fault. I got swamped, just trying to get things taken care of, get caught up on things. Today I'm actually going to read a letter that I had written to me. And it's a letter, but it was also a story that a subscriber sent in. And I think it's a good story, so I'm going to read it. And I hope that down in the comments, whoever does watch this, whoever stuck around, I do appreciate you. But I hope that you could comment on it. Maybe, if you have a story, feel free to email it in. But I am going to get to this story here. We're going to go over it. I really wanted to apologize for not being here and not putting out videos, but I had to get stuff taken care of. Now we're back up and running. I'm opening a beverage right here. It's a clear American. These things are awesome. If you guys have never had them, I highly recommend them. They have them at Walmart. It's sparkling water and it's flavored and it's really good. But yeah, I got stuff set up. I got some equipment to start doing the ghost hunting. I set up the basement different. I know it's kind of dark down here right now. I was trying to do like a little bit of a different thing. I have some other ideas of things I'm going to do to make this better. You can see the lights moving behind me, but I have some other things I'm going to be doing. We're going to be doing lives. We're going to be doing some ghost hunting videos. We're actually going to be doing my basement. That's going to be the first one that we're actually going to do. I think I showed you before I had some cat balls. I got some other stuff that I'm excited about using. So I'm looking forward to that, actually having some videos where I'm doing more than just talking. But yeah, there's a lot to get caught up on, a lot to talk about. I'm really excited to do that. But I am going to get the story pulled up here. I'm going to read that story out loud to you. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Maybe you get something out of it. Maybe you learn something. Maybe it brings back a memory that you may have had. And, leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think of it. I would like to do stories regularly if my subscribers would like to send them for me to read them. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. This is the first one. So I'm just going to read it on camera here. In the future, I might do something a little bit different. I have some ideas in my head, but I got to work everything out, and everything takes some time to learn. So I am using a lot better equipment now. I'm really excited about that. But we got a lot of good stuff coming up. So I'm going to get to reading this story, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that I never think that anybody's stories that are being sent to me are crazy. I just don't believe that. I believe that people have their experiences, and I believe that it's also a problem that people think that people could be crazy because. So I don't ever want anybody to feel, and I know it's a normal feeling, to feel different or odd because you may have had an experience that other people haven't, and that's not a reason to feel like that. So I'm going to read this, and I hope that the person that sent this, her channel is Mama Bear Living Life on YouTube. I hope that Belinda's okay with me saying that. If not, Belinda, I apologize. I'm going to read your whole story here, which it is a little bit of a story. So there's a little bit here, but it's great, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. And I hope that me reading this is somehow enjoyable to you as well. So I'm going to get on with the story here. I just want to say that real quick before I start. And everybody in the comments, please, as usual, You know the rules with the comments. We keep them respectful, and we treat everybody as the way we want to be treated. So I just always want to make sure that everybody knows that when you go in there. So mean comments will not be tolerated in the comment section. Just please keep it respectful. So this story is titled A Farmhouse Haunting. So you are either going to think I am crazy for sharing my story, or you have had a similar experience and can relate. But I would like to share my story about living in a haunted house. That's right. When I was a teenager, my mother, brother, and I lived in an old farmhouse way out in the country, surrounded by cornfields, and it was haunted. It was spring 1982. That's 3 years before I was born. We moved to central Illinois after my parents divorced. I was in the middle of farm country with neighbors at least a mile from you in each direction. The countryside was peppered with small towns where you could find a tiny country store, gas station, a small post office, and an occasional family-owned restaurant. We initially moved into my aunt's and uncle's house until my mom could get a job and find a place for us to live. It did not take long for my mom to find work, but it took her months to find a place for us to live. It was an old farmhouse sitting on about 6 cleared acres with old, dilapidated barns. Since she did not make very much money, the $75 a month rent for the place was perfect. None of us questioned why the rent was so cheap. We were just grateful to have a roof over our heads. Before I start telling you about the hauntings, I want to go into some more detail about the house so you can get a better mental picture. It was a turn-of-the-century colonial revival style 2-story farmhouse, square in shape with symmetrical facades and a small front entry porch. The white paint had faded from years of sun exposure, and the black shutters weathered the same issue. The front door was a 1930s style solid wood door with a twist ringer doorbell. Nestled under the ornate panel window, stepping through the front door, you were in what was called the front parlor in those days. Off to your right were pocket doors leading to the dining room, and next to that was a kitchen. Straight in front of you was the door leading upstairs, and just to the left of that was the door to the sitting room, another room for the era the house was built. The ceilings throughout were 10-foot with 8-foot windows, with original hardwood floors throughout. Craftsman woodwork could be seen in every room, with ornate interior doors and door trim, crown molding, and baseboard. As you walked into the dining room, there was a small pass-through to the kitchen on the left, which was common for that period. There was a beautiful chandelier hanging from the ceiling, a traditional Williamsburg style made of wrought iron hanging from a chain, and was initially a candle-style light. In the kitchen, an old gas stove was immediately to the left as you walked into the room, with the refrigerator next to it, and a door leading to the cellar on the other side of that. There was a floor-to-ceiling built-in cabinetry along the wall where the pass-through to the dining room was located. The bottom of the cabinetry was 4-foot pull-down storage bins that would house flour, sugar, beans, and such typical for the early 1900s. An exceptionally large porcelain-covered cast iron sink was straight across from you as you walked into the kitchen. The plumbing had been updated where, but there was still hand water pump to the right of the basin. This did not work. Across from either cabinetry was the back door that led to an uncovered back porch that spanned the entire length of the house. There was hand pump there also, and I once primed it to work very well. Back in the house, the sitting room was located just to the left of the stairs to the second floor and housed the one and only bathroom. I do not know if it was originally a bathroom, but it had an old cast iron claw tub, no shower, a sink attached to the wall with no vanity, and a toilet. The stairs leading to the second floor were narrow and steep, with a window at the top overlooking the back of the property. The stairs squeaked and popped no matter how quiet you tried to be when walking up or down them. Turning left at the top of the stairs was the first of 4 bedrooms. This room was always cooler than the rest of the house, no matter what time of year, and even though it had 2 windows, it was always dark in there. Walking down a short walkway straight ahead was a second bedroom. We used this room for storage. There were 3 extremely old portraits sitting on the floor in that room. It looked like they had survived a fire. 2 of the pictures were of 3 children, same children in both, and the third had a woman and 2 of the children. Exiting that room, you would turn right and find 2 more bedrooms. One on the right, my brother's bedroom, and one on the left, my bedroom. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary when we moved in, unboxing our things, cleaning and getting things arranged just the way we wanted them. But it did not take long after making ourselves at home for weird things to begin happening. The lights started flickering. Doors were slowly opening and closing. Noises that sounded like footsteps could be heard, and other stuff could be attributed to the house being old. All 3 of us just chalked it up to that 100-year-old house, noisy and such. That was until the stove incident. As I mentioned earlier, my parents were divorced, and we were to spend every other weekend with our dad. I had decided not to visit my dad one weekend. I was 17 years old and had other plans as teenagers to do. Well, that Saturday morning, my mom and I were cooking bacon and eggs on the stove for breakfast, as we usually do. Before I continue, let me explain this stove. It was an older model, white gas stove, typical 4 burners and large oven. To turn the stove burner or oven off and on, you had to push in the knobs and turn. The knobs would not move otherwise, and it made a pop sound when pushed in. Well, on this particular day, we were cooking breakfast and chatting away. Me cooking while my mom stood next to the stove. My mom was in the middle of saying something when we heard the knob on the stove pop. The same pop noise when it was being pushed in. Both of us slowly turned our heads to the stove and watched as the knob for the burner under the bacon turned to the off position. Neither one of us said a word as I turned the burner back off. After a minute of silence, my mom said, "Well, that was interesting," and we continued our conversation. For months afterwards, odd things continued to occur. We would set something down and go back to it later, and it was either moved or missing. To this day, we do not know what happened to missing items, like combs, brushes, frying pans, and books. Initially, we blamed one another, but there were too many instances where there was more than one person around to witness the placing of objects. Overhead lights in every room would turn on and off at the wall switches. These switches had to be pushed in and turned to operate. Doors would slowly creak open and close on you when you were entering or exiting a room. The antique front door had a twist knob doorbell built into the door. We would hear that doorbell ring on occasion, and there would never be anyone at the door. The kitchen and bathroom faucets would turn on and off. We would hear footsteps throughout the house, even hear them going up and down the stairs. The list of strange things was cut quite long, but we did not feel threatened in any way. All the paranormal incidents just became normal to us in that house. However, my mother did not like being alone in the house, even though she never felt threatened. There seemed to be more activity when my brother and I were not there, and she would never go into detail about them. Initially, she had set up her bedroom in the back sitting room, the room with the bedroom located directly under the bedroom at the top of the stairs. Neither my brother nor I asked her why she moved her bedroom to the dining room, but we believed it was because she may have been hearing odd things from the bedroom directly above her. Speaking of that room, I mentioned earlier that bedroom was always dark and cooler than the rest of the house. Even in the dead of summer, it was cold, and we did not have air conditioning. As soon as you stepped through the doorway, you would feel a cold heaviness cover you. I do not believe we used that room for anything, not even storage, so we rarely walked into the room. I cannot remember why, but one day I walked into the room to do something. After a minute or so, I started to feel dizzy and sick to my stomach. It was so bad that I sank to my knees and was on the verge of fainting. You know that tunnel vision you get as you are fainting? Well, I was at the point where I could not see, so I slowly, blindly crawled my way to the door. As soon as I crossed the threshold, my vision started coming back and the dizziness was subsiding. I made it to the top of the stairs, and sitting at the top step, I weakly called out to my mom, who was in the kitchen. She came around the bottom of the steps, and as soon as she saw me, she ran up the steps to help me get downstairs to the kitchen table. Once I gained my wits about me, I told her what happened, that the bedroom door was closed and we never stepped foot in there again. At some point, my aunt and uncle came over with their children. The oldest and I were close, and it was our habit to pair off from everyone and do our own thing. He asked me if I ever explored the basement. No, I responded. Shocked, he asked why. I simply said, the house is haunted, and I never had the urge to go in the basement. He and his brother had always been brave explorers. Some of their explorations nearly got them hospitalized, even close calls of being killed. He managed to convince me to go down into the basement to see what was there. Reluctantly, I slowly followed him down the steep open stairs. The basement was lit by two bare bulbed lights, one near the bottom of the stairs and the other at the far end. Also at the far end of the old propane furnace. Oddly enough, the basement looked like it was only 2/3 the size of the house, with the majority sitting directly under the kitchen and dining room. When you got into the bottom of the stairs and looked about 10 feet to your right, you could see the door leading outside. Turning to the right, you were facing two more doors on an opposite wall. The first one led to a room that was once used as a root cellar. It was about 4 feet by 10 feet and had old narrow wooden shelving along all the walls from floor to ceiling. The next room, about the same size as the first, was used as a coal room back in the days when there was a coal furnace to heat the house. The coal would be delivered by truck and would be poured down a metal chute into the room. The furnace was located about 10 feet from this room. Would be fed the coal by shovelful from the coal room. Other than no light in either of these rooms, there was nothing out of the ordinary there. We were diligent in closing and latching the doors as we finished exploring the rooms. These doors were hard to unlatch and open as the handles and hinges were worn and rusty. They creaked and groaned upon opening and closing, and the latches make a loud clank When turning the knobs, both of us were discussing how they must have lived back in the day as we were walking back to the stairs, talking about things like how difficult it must have been canning from a garden and storing the food in the root cellar, and the never-ending shoveling of coal in the winter. I was in front of my cousin and I reached the bottom of the stairs. We both heard it and stopped dead in our tracks. One of the latches had been unlatched. A door was creaking as we slowly turned our heads toward the noise, and neither of us said a word as we watched the coal room door slowly open about a foot. A heavy darkness started creeping towards us, and my cousin gasped as it drew near. The next thing I knew, I was being half pulled and half dragged up the stairs by him. We were frightened to our wits, and that day neither of us ever entered the basement again. Summer turned into winter, and we barely survived the bitter cold. The house, being so old, had little to no insulation. The windows were never updated, and the wind would blow through the windows, making the curtains sway back and forth. The heat came up from the old furnace in the basement, and the cost of propane was more than my mom's meager salary could afford. More than not, we did not have heat. When we did, it was heavily conserved. We would close off the upstairs, my brother and I only going up there on certain occasion to get clothes. And the back sitting room and bathroom were closed off as well, using a small heater to warm the bathroom when it was bath day. My brother and I reminisce about that winter, talking about things like breaking the ice in the toilet so we could go to the bathroom, and huddling together under a couple of blankets just to get warm enough to sleep. We lived rough that winter, to say the least, but looking back on the hardship, it made us better adults. Not to mention, neither of us liked the cold very much. Winter finally gave way to spring, and the paranormal activities continued. It happened so often and unthreateningly that it had become normal in our lives, until the day the basement flooded from a massive thunderstorm system that hovered in the area for several days. I do not recall how it was revealed that there was water in the basement, but I do remember my mom calling my uncle for help. When they arrived with the sump pump, all three went to the basement. I stayed in the kitchen with my two older cousins. Yes, one of them was the one who experienced the thing in the basement with me, and we refused to go get help. The adults were down in the basement for a while, setting the sump pump, but finally came back up. I noticed when my mom came upstairs that she was a bit pale, but she was not acting out of the ordinary, so I did not pay too much attention to it. It was going to take a while for the water to be completely pumped out, so we sat around the table to chat. My mom was sitting at the end of the table closest to the back door. After a few minutes of conversation had passed, my aunt looked over my mom and said, "Are you okay?" I was standing to the left of my mom and looked over at her. Her skin was pale when she came up from the basement. Was now pale purple, and her lips were blue, as was the skin under her nails. She did not respond and just sat there staring at nothing. What was the most frightening was her eyes. The beautiful brown was gone, and it was replaced with pitch black. My cousin and I both gasped, remembering the incident we had in the basement. It was at that point my mom started to fall out of the chair. My uncle caught her and gently set her on the floor as my aunt, who was a nurse, started assessing my mom's condition. I took a step towards my mom as my brain tried processing all of this. Everything was moving in slow motion, from seeing her physical appearance to my aunt performing her nursing skills to me kneeling beside her. I knelt next to her, trying desperately to process what was happening, when suddenly an icy presence rose from her body and the back screen door burst open. Then the presence was gone. My mother's condition immediately disappeared, and she asked what happened. To the best of my knowledge, the evil entity my cousin and I witnessed in the basement had attached itself to my mom that day and left the house through the back door. Not only did the basement feel safe, yet that day, but the bedroom at the top of the stairs was no longer dark or cold. We continued to experience paranormal activity, but never again felt evil in the house. That fall, we moved to Florida. It has been 40 years, but I remember that house and all the spooky activity as if it happened yesterday. So there's a story, and I'm sorry, I was trying to read, and it's dark down here, and I'm staring at the screen, and my eyes are actually watering from reading. It was a great story, very long. I appreciate it, Belinda, all the detail, everything. It was amazing. I think that was a great story. I hope that you all enjoy it. Let me know what you think of it. I mean, that all seems like very reasonable things. I think that we've all heard. Like I said, I really hope that you guys just enjoy this story, but I am very impressed. It's very well written, and just the amount of detail you put into it, you can feel how real that is and how you felt, and just the descriptive. I could picture this house in my head, and I think that all helps, and I think that helped me tell this story here. But thank you so much. That is very awesome, and I think that there are some of us that have had stuff like this happen. If you have, leave a comment. If you'd like to, write a story and send it over to me about a past experience you've had, I'd be more than happy to do it like this. But I really do appreciate it. This was such a good story. There was so much information given. I may email you back here, and I have not like I don't believe this questions, but I just have some other just roundabout questions that I want to ask. So I'm going to do that in an email, and maybe I'll do it in a follow-up video. I'll kind of go back to those questions. But once again, thank you so much for sending that. I think this is probably going to be one of the longest videos I ever did. So everybody's going to want to stay tuned. There will be some ghost hunting stuff coming up soon. I'm getting back into it. Like I said, I wanted to put this video out, get it out there. Just kind of apologize, read this story. She actually sent this story, it was a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it was like 3 weeks ago when she sent this. So I am very thankful for getting this story, but that was one interesting story, and I don't think you're crazy. I believe that all that stuff did happen, and I like I said, I have some little questions, just particularly like I said, it was very detailed, but there's some stuff that I'm just like I'm curious about, like if there's anything else to elaborate on. I know that you were writing it as a short story, so you probably weren't getting into everything, but I just have some more questions, just interested. It was great. But like I said, leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you think. Once again, Belinda, thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching and taking your time to do this. I know that was not a short time to write that, to type that out. So it means the world to me. I want to thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Keep it spooky, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.